Now, I'm not trying to convince anybody, and I hope I never do, that God exists, or to sell a particular promise about God, or to deliver up a how-to manual to access the holy in everyday life. But I don't think those things really do. All I want to do in this particular moment is to say that those of us who have difficulty experiencing the holiness that others seem to sense all around them or within them, that it's perhaps the problem is really in our vocabulary. And perhaps the problem is in our use or our disuse of our sensing capacity. We have all the senses that we need with which to experience the holy in our midst. Or perhaps we do not use them. Or perhaps we don't use them well enough. Or perhaps we don't respect them. Perhaps the problem is not in our capacity, but in how much of our capacity we use. So that's the first thing that I want to offer up for us Thomases to reflect upon this week. How much of our capacity to sense and experience holiness do we actually use? Can we build capacity the same way that we go about building muscle or language or mathematics skills? So give that some thought, my brothers and sisters of the Thomas plan. Secondly, the sense capacity, the sensing capacity that I haven't mentioned is a truly difficult and cantankerous one for those of us indoctrinated into the cult of rugged individualism. Spiritual depth and capacity has a communal component. It's communal. There's no way to be spiritual outside of community. Beginning somewhere in the middle of the last century, we began to imagine ourselves in a way that is radically different from all of our previous ancestors in human history. The idea that we could individually know something about God and the spiritual nature of the universe that was not handed down to us from the previous generations is a radical break with all previous spiritual wisdom in all traditions. The idea as well that I could have my own value. How many times do you hear that? Well, my values are. The idea that we could have our own values and that those values would not be rooted in a communal wisdom that's older and deeper and wider than ourselves is a radical break with all previous spiritual wisdom. The idea that we are loners in the universe, capable of individually accessing knowledge about God that is unmediated through the centuries of religious ideas and rituals and sacraments, and that comes to us in some pure new revelation, unassociated from all previous revelations, is a radical break with all previous spiritual wisdom. So the second thing I want us to consider, those of us who are Thomas, is that community is one of our sense organs. That community is one of the ways of knowing. Community means that it's not necessary for us to personally know everything there is to know. Because community holds a treasure trove of spiritual wisdom in the same way that brain cells hold memory. And just like brain cells, when community breaks down, we begin to lose knowledge. There's a fascinating insight about this provided in the first weeks after we invaded Iraq. If you remember, in those first weeks, there was a landscape in Iraq of relative peace before the resistance kicked off. And in that relative peace, our electrical engineers and our power techs were sent over there to get Iraq's power grid back up as soon as it could in order to win the hearts and minds battle as well as to benefit our armed forces. But we were very slow at patching things back together. Iraq's technology war was terribly antiquated. And our generations who we sent over there are trained and learned their trade and honed their skills on our modern technology. They didn't have the capacity to bandage the old back together again because there was some rudimentary know-how that they'd forgotten or never were taught. In other words, they couldn't jerry-rig the equipment back together again. Now, we think about the Dark Ages and we wonder how whole cultures could forget knowledge and technology in so short a span of history. But all we have to do is to consider how many of our children know how to survive without electricity. What rudimentary life skills for making a fire to generating power that most of us never learned. Community is a source of knowing, but it's a fragile source. And it requires continuity in order for wisdom to remain robust. Spirituality is not an individual exercise. It is a communal wisdom in spite of what passes for spirituality in our culture these days. So what I want to say to my Thomas brothers and sisters is to know that God is not a commodity that can be purchased. God's not a secret knowledge to which only some people have access. God's not even something to be known or had in any kind of way at all. So because we are Thomases, we need to really stretch our sensing capacities so that we are open to knowing when God chooses to be made known. And because we are Thomases, we need to really stretch our curmudgeonly resistance to any dependence upon others. To receive knowledge and wisdom, we can't invent our own. And because we are Thomases, we need to lower our resistance to being thoroughly involved in community on some level and move beyond our comfort zone so that we can tap into the wisdom and the power that is always and everywhere greater than ourselves. So I guess that's it. And my brothers and sisters who share Thomas' strong, and I might add smart, need to experience that which we are being asked to believe. These are the two things with which we probably need remedial help. Building the capacity of our sensing apparatus and deepening our rootedness in community. It's not a matter of blind faith. It's not a matter of leap of faith. That's for other people. For us, we require a lot more. We require an experience of God. And so, because we require that experience ourselves, we need to use